Survey after survey keeps coming to the same conclusion. Americans are struggling to pay their bills and falling behind on their loan payments. FICO, the credit scoring company, released a report late last year that found delinquency rates on credit cards, auto loans, and personal loans are at or near their highest levels since 2009, at the end of the Great Recession. The financial stress so many are feeling is causing a lot of anxiety and despair. Many feel they'll never get ahead. I'm Herb Weisbaum, the Consumer Man, a contributing editor at checkbook.org.
Welcome to Consumerpedia at checkbook.org. We're the nonprofit that helps consumers select services, avoid trouble, and save money. Because we don't accept any advertising or take money from any business we recommend, you can rely on checkbook.org to be completely independent and objective. Now, here's the host of Consumerpedia, America's consumer expert, the Consumer Man, Herb Weisbaum.
In this episode, what to do if you're drowning in debt, you'll meet two women who realized they needed help and with some hard work and proper guidance are now debt-free. But first, I want to discuss the troubling attitude some Americans now have about accumulating debt. Here to talk about that is Bruce McClary, a senior vice president at the nonprofit National Foundation for Credit Counseling. Hello, Bruce.
Hi, Herb.
And Kathy Steinberg, a vice president at the Harris Poll.
Hi, Herb.
So, Bruce, your survey found that about a third of Americans feel a heightened sense of financial anxiety. What's going on with people now?
Well, people are taking it from every direction when it comes to balancing their budget, managing their finances, and dealing with an increasing amount of debt. And what we've been finding is that people's debt balances are growing. The interest that they're paying on the debt that they owe is higher now than it was in years past. And the cost of living has gone up. People are dealing with inflation. People are dealing with higher housing-related costs, from insurance to taxes to all kinds of other expenses that 2 or 3 years ago might have seemed manageable, but are less manageable. And so there's a lot of strain and people are feeling the squeeze.
And that's making them do things that may hurt them financially in the long run just to make ends meet, such as making less than the minimum payments on their credit cards, right?
Yeah, people are having to make some really tough decisions. Should they buy certain types of groceries? Should they get medication? Should they pay one bill or another on time and let another one slide? And should they rely on the amount of credit that they have available to backfill where their money runs out?
Kathy, the Harris Poll conducted this survey for the NFCC. Can you give us some context on how you interpret what you heard from folks?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to. We've been working with the NFCC for over 15 years to track Americans' financial literacy, their budgeting, their spending. One of the things we've continued to see is that less than half of Americans have a budget. So when financial difficulties hit, there's not as much of a cushion or wiggle room to buffer that load. So we do see Americans taking on more debt. Usually we conduct the annual survey in the spring, and this year we refielded some questions in the summer as well and did see an increase in exactly those negative financial behaviors: missing payments, being late on payments, taking money out of investments, being unable to pay bills, or relying on savings, dipping into savings to pay bills, which not even very many Americans have access to, as nearly 1 in 3 have no savings whatsoever. So they're struggling and don't have much of a cushion to fall back on.
Kathy, are people just throwing up their hands and saying, I have no other choice, I got to get through the week or get through the month and I'll deal with the consequences later?
There is a sense of that where we see a lot of people, nearly 2 in 3, saying that being in debt makes it harder for them to make the best decisions in other parts of their lives. About half feel like they are constantly just treading water financially, and that they don't have a lot of room to improve their station in life, that they're really just trying to get through the day.
So we talked at the top about how delinquency rates are going up. Do you expect this to continue through 2026?
To some extent, probably, until some things turn around. One silver lining that we see in the data is Americans are self-aware that they do need help. And they recognize that, when we ask them how knowledgeable they feel, their responses are tempered. Americans know that they need help and they are willing to reach out to get it.
Bruce, one way to get that help is to contact a nonprofit credit counseling agency, a member of your organization, NFCC. What can a trained counselor do that I can't do on my own?
Well, the first thing that is important to remember is that when you're talking to an NFCC certified credit counselor, you're talking to a nonprofit financial professional who can take a look at your situation comprehensively and look at all aspects of the challenges that you're dealing with, the resources that you have available to deal with those challenges, and the options that you have to get help in overcoming those challenges. And sometimes when you're down in the trenches with your budget and you're fighting that battle, it takes somebody from the outside, a professional, to take a broad look at your situation and provide you with advice that maybe you hadn't thought of while you were in that fog of war working on some of those financial challenges.
And this advice is not limited to just credit card debt. You can work with people with housing debt and also with student loan debt, right?
Correct. Yes. NFCC member agencies that provide housing counseling are HUD approved, so they can work with people who are looking to make the transition from renting to home ownership. And they can also work with people who are struggling to afford their home and might be facing foreclosure.
So how does a nonprofit credit counselor differ from a for-profit company? The ones we hear advertised all the time. We guarantee you're going to be debt-free. Call now. Explain the difference, Bruce.
Well, the first thing is that you receive a full review of your finances when you connect with a nonprofit credit counseling agency. So they go over your budget, your income, and they look at your situation and provide you with advice right at the beginning. And those sessions are typically free of charge. So right there, you get something usable for connecting with a nonprofit credit counseling agency without having to pay a fee up front. You have some options, but the primary thing is that the counselor can inform you about the choices you have in front of you, and they help you determine the suitability of those options. With some of the for-profit companies that are offering debt relief, they only give you one option, and they have one product, and that's what they're going to sell you. And so there's less of a determination of suitability as there is a funnel to try to connect you with the one service that they offer. And in some cases, maybe that service is helpful, but in some cases, when it's not, consumers don't have the choice and the information to make an informed decision that steers them in the right direction.
From my reporting, a lot of times you deal with these companies, you wind up in worse shape than when you started. So you really need to be careful. My advice, start with a nonprofit, and that's the way to go. So there you go. nfcc.org is the website you want to check out. Kathy, before we go, any final thoughts from you? Anything you'd like to share based on your years of research in this area?
Yeah, just encouraging Americans to educate themselves. One of the things we continue to see is the more educated you are, the more empowered you feel, better decisions you can make in your day-to-day life. And that starts with organizations like NFCC and nonprofit credit counseling.
Great. Kathy Steinberger, Vice President at the Harris Poll. Thanks for joining us, Kathy.
Thank you for having me.
And Bruce McClary. He's with the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. Great having you, Bruce.
Thanks, Herb.
At checkbook.org, we have the answers to your consumer questions 24/7. That's checkbook.org. We're a unique nonprofit that can help you with select local service providers, avoid trouble, and save money. Because we don't accept any advertising or take money from any business we recommend, you can rely on Checkbook to be completely independent and objective. Our advice is always free. Ratings of local services are available with a subscription. If you live in one of these 7 metro areas and haven't joined Checkbook yet, check us out. Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia, Seattle, San Francisco, Minneapolis-St. Paul, and Washington, D.C. Get your free 30-day subscription by going to checkbook.org/Consumerpedia.
Life is full of nasty surprises. You can be cruising along happy and financially secure one day, and then you lose your job or get sick the next, and suddenly you're living on your credit cards, and the debt keeps piling up. That's what happened to Janine Kozinski, a language educator and dog trainer. Due to a traumatic event at work, she found herself emotionally overwhelmed and financially strapped for the first time in her life. Through her unwavering commitment and guidance from a nonprofit credit counselor, she's now completely debt-free. Janine joins us from San Francisco.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me.
So take us back to the time when you were out of work, faced with an enormous rent and other expenses.
When I was out of work, I lived in Silicon Valley, which is extremely expensive. I had been working for a tech company where my event happened. And then after that, I worked for a startup, and I was making, $50 an hour for the startup, but they ran out of money. And so it went from, Wednesday, great. And then Thursday, hey, your last day's tomorrow. And I had no contingency plan there. My rent was $2,600 a month. And my boyfriend that I lived with was in graduate school. So, we just had nothing. And so my solution was to use credit cards. And my debt just was huge. It became very, very quickly just completely unsustainable. I had 5 credit cards. Prior to this, I was paying everything off. So I had really high limits and I maxed them all out. I was also hiding it from my friends and my family because I was ashamed of it. I had never been in debt in my life, and I kept kind of denying everything to myself, just, oh, you'll find something, just keep applying. But the more dire my situation became, the sicker I got, and it just became pretty clear to me that, even I was even hiding things from my boyfriend who I lived with and we had been together 6 years at that point. So yeah, it was just incredibly like shaming, and I was in a bad downward spiral.
What was the total? How much debt had you racked up at that point?
It was about 35.
$35,000.
And that was credit card only. I still had to make payments on 2 school student loans.
Yeah.
It was bad.
And knowing your story, the stress made you sick, physically ill.
Yes, it did. Who knew? But PTSD and stress and chronic anxiety. So your digestive system can turn off completely. And mine did. It's called gastroparesis. Your stomach just stops moving things down. It's a muscle. So, and I got just incredibly thin to the point where I was hospitalized. And that was directly related to my financial stress and situation. Wow. And just the lack of a job. You get really discouraged and you get really depressed and you either stop looking or I think in my case, it was kind of like is it soft quit or quiet quitting, of just being so discouraged after rejection, after rejection, after rejection that I just stopped doing a good job. And it was COVID. So it was just really hard with a pandemic, and I just got so sick by the time I reached out. Things were just really, with health-wise, I was very, very close to dying a couple of times. So yes, stress can absolutely kill you.
So I know you saw the ads for debt relief companies. We guarantee to solve your problem quickly and easily.
Oh, yeah.
But you chose to go with American Consumer Credit Counseling, a nonprofit credit counseling agency. Why did you do that?
I had 2 reasons for that. The first was my father. He warned me against them quite early. I noticed after I got the student loans that I would get them in the mail. And every time I got one, my stomach would just sink and I'd think, like, don't do it. And they're tempting. They have really good marketers. They can pay for that because they, rip people off.
Yeah.
And then also a recommendation from, a professional
Right.
that I knew would not lead me to anything dangerous.
It takes a lot of inner strength to admit you need help. Was it hard to make that initial call?
Extremely. I was crying. I think I waited a couple of days and I practiced in the mirror. I just was like, you can do this. And it really did help that Arthur recommended them. I think that was the push that I needed to just swallow the pride and say, you're not getting out of this alone. You need somebody to help you out. And if you're not going to ask your friends and your parents, you should probably talk to a professional or a group of them.
Well, now you're debt-free. You're back at work.
I am.
You sound great.
Thank you.
It sounds like that call and a lot of hard work on your part changed your life.
It did. It absolutely, I will always tell people that it was one of the things that changed my life for the better, not only to get me out of the debt, but to give me that confidence and kind of faith in people again. It sounds kind of corny, but it's like a friend helping you with your money problems, and you learn so much. It's so much better than the exit counseling I got for my federal student loans. They were like, okay, yeah, you owe things and this is debt. But these guys coached you through. They helped, I made a spreadsheet. I know how to watch my money and how to be honest with myself about needing to pare down. Lots of strategies were given to me that I just had never heard, but they were doing it in such a shame-free way that after that initial call of feeling like, oh God, I have to do this, I was excited to hear from them regularly. My counselor was just fantastic.
So before we let you go, what is your message to someone who might be hearing your story and wants to get that debt monkey off their back?
You can do this. You can absolutely do it. If I can get rid of $34,000 of debt and maintain my health and get my career, I own my own businesses now, 2 of them. If I can do that, when I had a feeding tube up my nose and $30 in the bank and, all this debt, the banks were literally hounding me. And if I can do that from rock bottom, you can do that too, but you can't do it without help. So call these guys. They will be kind to you. They will help you learn about your money and rebuild your relationship with your creditors. And then you can be free. It sounds really impossible when you're in it, but I can tell you right now, if you call them, it will change your life. It will, for the better.
Janine, you have a really powerful story to tell, and I want to thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Herb, and I just keep doing what you're doing. I love this podcast. I'm a regular listener now, and I appreciate you all so much.
Thank you. Well, straight ahead, another success story, a millennial mom who had $21,000 on her credit card bills, and rather than declare bankruptcy, worked to pay it off. Wait till you hear what her credit score is today. I'm Herb Weisbaum, the Consumer Man, and this is Consumerpedia, powered by checkbook.org.
Consumerpedia Fast Facts. Based on the latest data from the Federal Reserve, Americans are carrying a record amount of debt. On average, about $105,000 per household. Mortgage debt accounts for nearly 3/4 of that debt load. According to Credit Bureau Experian, millennials 28 to 43 years old owed an average of almost $372,000, the highest balance of any generation. Set-aside home loans, and Gen X, 44 to 59-year-olds, took the lead with an average of $68,000 in debt, while members of the silent generation aged 79 and older had the least amount of debt, $27,000.
And now another dealing with debt success story. Tiana Moore is a millennial mom and an operating room nurse in New Britain, Connecticut. Tiana lost her job back in 2019, which was followed by a pandemic-related furlough a year later. By the time she made contact with Money Management International, a nonprofit credit counseling agency, she had $21,000 in credit card debt. In 4 years, with a lot of hard work, she was able to get that down to zero. Tiana, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So let's go in the time machine. What was it like having $21,000 in credit card debt?
I honestly felt like I was drowning. I had to contemplate between covering those minimum payments to putting food on the table or paying my mortgage and raising my children. So it was very difficult to make a decision on what to pay for this month.
Did you miss the minimum sometime?
I did. And I had to ask for, waivers, but you only could do that so many times.
What about collection agencies? Were they on your back?
I didn't get to that extent, thankfully. But again, just trying to pull money somewhere to make that minimum payment, it was getting very hard.
I assume the interest rates were sky high.
Oh, yeah, 29, 30%.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. So it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
So what was it? What was the final thing that made you decide to reach out and contact Money Management International?
It was my local bank. Bank of America had sent a letter stating that they understood that a lot of Americans were struggling with the pandemic and needing help getting by. And they had collaborated with Money Management International to help those get out of debt. So I took the advantage to give them a call.
What happened? What did they actually do for you? Run us through the process.
So when I gave them a call, I wasn't really familiar with a debt management plan. I just assumed there was some type of collection. They assured me that it wasn't. It was a plan that I'd set up with an advisor, and we'd go over all my expenses as well as my debts. And I felt relieved where it's actually being considered my expenses between childcare at the time, my mortgage, groceries, utilities, everything came into play. And I really felt like the situation was being humanized. We're like, okay, this is a real person going through a real struggle. How can we accommodate her? And they did. So after we had to do a rundown of all my expenses and my debt, they had then let me know that they will be contacting those creditors and trying to negotiate at least a 0% APR, if not lower than what I currently have.
So they got your credit card interest rates lowered?
They actually got them down to 0 for each and every one.
Wow. Okay, something you probably couldn't have done on your own.
No.
And so you made one payment to them and then they took care of dispersing the money?
Yes. So they allocated all the money for each and every creditor. I had about a good 10 to 15 of them. So that was a lot in itself to maintain. So they had put in a sum for me every month and they dispersed that between all the creditors.
I can't imagine juggling payments at 10 different credit card companies. I mean, seriously, it's like all the time you're getting another bill.
Yeah, it was nonstop all the time. It was just like, is it ever going to end?
Were you required to either cut up your credit cards or stop using the credit cards, or what was the deal that they had you work out with them on that?
Yeah, so that was a caveat of it. You had to stop using the cards. I mean, the accounts were already closed, so you couldn't use them if you wanted to.
Okay.
Which is great because I feel you're not tempted to use them again. But then you're also advised don't get another because now we're going to be in the same place that we were when we started.
So after 4 years, you got that 21 grand down to zero. And how you feeling?
I feel great. And actually, my total was 21,000, but what money management did was they calculated if I were to continue paying those minimum payments, I would have ended up actually paying $54,000 to these creditors.
Oh my.
So yeah, so they actually knocked my total down $30,000 actually.
And that's a really good point, by the way. When you make the minimum payment, you're not getting anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting deeper and deeper, right?
Yes.
So again, how are you feeling that you got that monkey off your back?
I feel amazing because now I had opportunities to catch up on some of the bills that I had because I did have some bills that I was behind on because of the credit card debt. I also had an opportunity to save as well. So it's great to know that now I can invest in my future and my children's future.
Has this changed your relationship with money?
It has. I've learned to be more frugal. I've learned to be more mindful. I actually busted out the old school checkbook and I'm writing out all my expenses. Okay, this is what we have and this is what we need to get. And to make sure if we have anything left over, if we don't, then we need to make sure that we carry it over to the next pay period just to make sure we're not in that hole again.
I don't know the ages, but did you explain any of this or talk to your kids about this?
I did. I did talk to my children about it. Unfortunately, the school systems don't have a financial literacy program, which is unfortunate because I feel like there's certain things in life lessons you should learn before you go out on the world on your own. But yeah, I sat down with them and I'm honest with my kids because I don't want them to be in the same situation that I was.
Was there any embarrassment at all? Like, did you tell your friends? Did you try to hide it from your friends? How did you deal with getting help?
No, I was very transparent with my friends. I wanted to be honest because sometimes you never know people who are going through things too. A lot of people like to, be like in the shadows. Like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm kind of ashamed of my situation. But I feel like when you open up about it, someone else can say, hey, you know what? I'm going through it too. And I was afraid to mention it. But since you went through it, please help me through the process so I can get out of the rut that I'm in. So
if someone was in your situation or worse shape, I mean, I've seen people with $80,000 worth of credit card debt that paid it down in 4 years and then put a down payment on a house. The goal is reach out and have somebody help you.
Yes, for sure. And I help everyone along that way that I came across that wanted to start looking but didn't know where to start. I guided them to find out, okay, this is where we're going to call. This is the process, just so they're not blindsided when they're told. So they're aware of everything that comes with it as far as, you can't use your cards anymore. We have a monthly commitment. So they're aware. So I've always been very transparent with everyone that has asked me about it.
Once the process is set up, does the counselor continue to work with you? Because I could see people slipping and going, I want to get out of this. I want to start buying stuff or whatever.
Yes, for sure. They've been awesome because there's even times where if my pay period fell after the due date, I'd call them up and say, hey, I don't get paid for another 3 days. Can we push back the date? And they're like, yeah, sure, no problem. So that was another relief where I'm like, okay, great. I don't have to worry about scrambling to find money or ask someone to, meet this date. Because, with creditors, they don't care. You have to pay on that due date or we're hitting you with another fee.
Yeah, that's the way it works. That's how they make their money.
Yeah. So it was great that they worked the process with me. And again, because they advised me they kind of opened my eyes a bit and let me know like, hey, don't open any other credit cards. Yes, we had canceled these, but don't be tempted because we want to make sure that we are debt free. That ultimately that is our goal. So you don't have this around your neck. And I'm like, yes, thank you for being honest because I feel like being told that kind of made me take it more seriously.
Final question. Any thoughts you want to share with folks listening based on your experience?
If you were ever contemplating getting help, just do it. Don't wait another day. Don't let these interest rates continue to compile. Just do it so you can actually get your life back and be able to invest in yourself, your future.
Congratulations. And thank you so much for spending time with us. It was nice to talk to you.
You too. Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Let me leave you with this thought. If you're struggling to pay your bills or just want to find a better way to handle your family budget, a nonprofit credit counselor is waiting to talk to you. Visit the National Foundation for Credit Counseling website, nfcc.org. As we said earlier, the initial consultation is typically free, nfcc.org. Before we go, a few related episodes you might want to check out. Number 9, Understanding How Credit Scores Work. Number 50, finding a credit card that's right for you. And number 68, credit card rewards cards. And with that, we're out of time. We hope you'll rate this episode. It's really helpful. And follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Remember, we release new episodes every other Thursday. Another way you can support this show is to follow us at Consumerpedia on Facebook and Instagram, at Consumerpedia.org on Blue Sky, and at My Consumerpedia on X. You can find me at consumerman.com. I'm Herb Weisbaum, always looking out for you. Until next time, be smart and shop wisely.
Consumerpedia is a public service of checkbook.org. We're a unique nonprofit that helps you save money and make smarter choices. You can count on Checkbook to help you find the best services and avoid the worst, with local ratings that are accurate and unbiased. If you live in or around these 7 cities and haven't joined Checkbook yet, check us out. Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia, Minneapolis-St. Paul, Seattle, San Francisco, and Washington, D.C. To get your free 30-day subscription, go to checkbook.org/Consumerpedia. Consumerpedia, empowering consumers to save money and make smarter choices.